Week in the Triangle. This is Stephen Horn. I'm going to talk about some local news from the past week here in North Carolina. And our first story up is from a suburb of Raleigh called Garner. So what we have here is we've got illegal aliens kidnapping $1 million ransom. This is a pretty crazy story. Now, illegal aliens committing crime isn't exactly new. It's sort of there in the name, but in this case, that some of the particular details of this situation are a little odd, a little out there. So reportedly, the story that we're hearing is that on last Monday night, three masked and armed individuals broke into the home of a Hispanic couple living in Garner and demanded $1 million ransom in cash. When the couple couldn't pay up, they duct taped the husband and took the mother and their 11-month-old daughter. The next morning, the mother and daughter were found in Wake Forest after they had been released, after the police had released an Amber Alert later on in the week. The Garner police made two arrests in this case: Paulo Duran, 25 years old, and her brother Miguel Angel Duran, 23. And these were charged with first-degree and second-degree kidnapping. And a third arrest was made on Friday: Eliodoro Estrada Hernandez, 37 years old. So there have been ICE detainers filed for the Durans. These are a brother and sister. And what is quite odd here is that this neighborhood is described as being working class and quiet by a man who was interviewed by one of the TV stations. So why would these three Hispanic alleged criminals come to a quiet working class neighborhood thinking they could get $1 million ransom? There's plenty of neighborhoods in Durham, Raleigh, maybe even Cary, where you might expect, hey, these are rich people, high property values, might have a lot of cash or jewelry or other fungible property on hand. But you can look at the Google Street View of this neighborhood. It does not fall into that category. So why would they think there would be $1 million in cash, and why would they think that, kidnapping this mother and child would possibly result? And there's also the fact that, all the family and the perpetrators are all apparently Hispanic. In Garner, apparently it's only 12% of the population. So, it's not clear whether there was any, tie there. Did they know each other? Why did they target this home? There might be a little clue in the criminal history of Estrada Hernandez, which is that he had previously pled guilty to trafficking methamphetamine and had been sentenced to prison. So we don't know whether Estrada Hernandez was in this country illegally as well. He will have his court hearing this Monday. We might learn whether or not he has an ICE detainer, and I'll make sure to update you. This is at thisweekinthetriangle.com, where I publish about local news here, if you want to get those updates. So it's just sort of an odd situation all around. What were drugs involved somehow? Did these alleged kidnappers have some reason to believe that there would be a lot of cash in this random home on a street in Garner? So lots of questions which we may never get the answers to. Our next story is from a Wake County middle school, Holly Ridge Middle School, where Libs of TikTok posted a screenshot of a survey which was reportedly sent out to the parents asking about the students' gender identity. So basically, it's a screenshot of a survey. What is your child's gender identity? The options are female, male, transgender, non-binary / non-conforming, or prefer not to respond. And obviously, this is disturbing to a lot of parents that the school would even be inquiring about such thing. Now, I have not been able to independently confirm this, but this was, shared with Libs of TikTok, who proceeded to share it on their Twitter X account. Our next story is last week. It was the 1-year anniversary of the Triangle Gaza Solidarity Encampment, where pro-Palestine demonstrators set up their encampment on the UNC campus in flagrant violation of the university's policies against setting up temporary structures. They knew it was against the rules. They did it anyway, and the police ended up coming in and arresting about 3 dozen of them. So that was a year ago today. Now, I believe WUNC, interviewed one of the students who went up and helped put back the American flag after it was taken down. That was a group of Jewish fraternity brothers. There are some certainly interesting events that day. I have some analysis in the works regarding sort of the results of the legal process of those 36 arrests, because when you hear a headline about arrests at a protest, that is not the end of the story. That's just the beginning of the story. And, it's a big question. We saw on January 6th, there is arrests, and all those arrests were, prosecuted to the fullest until Trump came back into office and issued pardons. The Department of Justice, they pursued those cases. They didn't offer pretrial diversion. So, all of those either ended in a plea deal or went to trial. But often, at the state level, when arrests are made at a protest, the charges are either dropped or, pretrial diversion is offered, maybe some community service. So I have an article coming out regarding that, because the majority of those arrestees at the UNC encampment did take a pretrial diversion and did do, 24 to 36 hours of community service. And if they complete that, the charge is, sort of off their record. But I have an article going into that and going into some of the statistics and data about those 36 arrestees. So for the anniversary, these the some Palestine supporters gathered at the same location on the UNC campus, for an all-day event, which included some activities such as anti-ICE defense training, anti-imperialism teach-in, and a collective defense panel. So basically, kind of the same stuff. I'm not really sure that they have been effective at all at UNC in terms of pushing them to divest from Israeli companies, or companies that support Israel, especially because there's actually a state law against that. Um, so I don't believe that the University of North Carolina could do that, even if they chose, as it is a state entity. And our other protest news from the week was a celebration of May Day. So, this is a communist related holiday, and that is exactly what we saw with the Party for Socialism and Liberation, as well as various union groups leading basically what is an anti Trump and anti Musk rally in Raleigh. So, there's reportedly thousands of protesters in attendance. That's the mainstream media reports. So, it's basically the same anti Trump and anti Musk, anti-Doge, rhetoric that we have heard since Trump has come into office, but with a slightly more union theme. So there are federal unions, manufacturing unions, service union, and of course the North Carolina Teachers Union, the North Carolina Association of Educators. And that is all the news for this week. It was a little short because I was out of town this week. But if you want to get local news from the Greater Triangle area in North Carolina in your inbox every week, just go to thisweekinthetriangle.com. And I put a sort of a summary like this out every Saturday. And I also publish original articles like the analysis of the UNC encampment arrests I have coming up. If you've been tuned in, thanks for coming.